Welcome to Relationship Real Talk, the Live the Life podcast.
For over 20 years, we have been dedicated to strengthening marriages and families through relationship education. For more information about us, you can visit us at livethelife.org. Welcome everyone, I'm Ashley, and today we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're doing an episode just for the girls. I have my co-host.
Hello, my name is Kaylin.
Yes, she also works with me here at Live the Life, and we have Katie Bulmer here as our guest. Katie is a small town girl who now lives in the mountains of Chattanooga. She's a mom, a wife. She has an incredible blog that turned into a book, and now she speaks to girls all over the country. She also has a really great podcast called Truth for Your 20s. Would recommend. Katie, we're so excited that you're here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right, so we're going to jump into it. Ladies, again, this episode is for you. So, all right, first question. So I know a lot of girls, and I'm going to include myself in this, I've absolutely got caught up in this mindset. We find the need to have that boyfriend, to feel relevant, to feel worthy of love. So when you're talking to women, how do you address that? How do you address this mindset?
Yeah, I think it goes back to a boyfriend will complete me, right? And that's put in us from Cinderella and all of that stuff. And I always say a boyfriend can compliment you with an E, like not, oh, you're pretty, like compliment as in run the race with you, be your partner, but not complete you. You know, that famous line from the Jerry Maguire movie, and Renee Zellweger walks in and she's like, you complete me. Yeah. And I Googled this. It's actually one of the top romantic movie lines of all times because it is adorable and we're like, oh, that's great, but it's not realistic. It's a movie. And we're like, oh, this person can complete me. But in reality, not only is that untrue, it's unfair. Because right now, I've been married 16 years to a wonderful man, but I can't look to him and be like, here's all of my broken places, fix it. Because he's also a flawed human being. Yeah. And asking, you know, a person, a human, no matter how wonderful, to fix you, to complete you is untrue and unfair. So instead, I have to look to the only one who can complete me. I always say a boyfriend is not your savior and you are not theirs.
Right. That's good.
So yeah, having that one who can complete you. And then, you know, what do we really want in a boyfriend? Do we want someone who, we're all broken. So, you know, I'm not going to say like a broken person, but we're all broken. But what do we want? Like, you know, I'm in debt. I have a ton of mommy and daddy issues. I have so many exes I can't count, and so many like past relationship scars. But can you fix me? Like, what? How about instead, you get whole, you work on becoming the best version of yourself. I'll do the same, and then we get together. That makes a much more stable and healthy relationship versus looking for each other to fill all your broken places. It's crazy. It's crazy that we think that. And it's true. I mean, I did too. Yeah. But yeah, that's our romance culture. I mean, you know, it's totally our romance culture. And I could go on for days about that too.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah, for sure. So Kaylin, why don't you ask our next question?
Sure. So we also tend to ignore red flags because of this need to be in a relationship. So can you kind of talk about why we do that?
Yes. So there is a term, a psychology term, but actually I learned it because of my marketing background. It's called confirmation bias. And essentially it means that we all look for evidence to support what we want to believe, which is very evident right now in this political climate, because good luck trying to convince anyone to believe what they currently, like, different than what they currently believe. And it's human nature. It's not a bad thing. But when it comes to dating, we look so hard for evidence to support what we want to believe. So, for example, at my junior year in college, I was in a terrible relationship, and the guy gave me like crumbs of evidence that he, you know, liked me and only me. I legitimately had a notebook where I wrote down said crumbs to like have evidence that like he was a good guy. Yet the evidence was mounting so high I couldn't even see that, you know, I need to run from that relationship. But I saw what I wanted to see because of confirmation bias. So we all have this, but the best way, and we're clouded. We're also emotions cloud judgment. And when you have this huge cloud of judgment around you. I mean, you're trying to see the top of the mountains in a huge foggy day. It's just, it's very, very hard. So the best way I tell people to get through that confirmation bias and to remove that cloud of emotions is to ask someone outside of the relationship what they see on the other side. And, this is tricky because not everyone wants to hear that guy is treating you like crap. You need to run away.
Yeah.
Like that is not, a hard conversation. That's a hard conversation to have. But, ask a trusted friend. You need to have a few people in your life that, have your best interest in heart. Even if they say what you don't want to hear, giving them that permission to speak over you. Like, listen, I'm feeling like perhaps this guy, I'm having some uneasy feelings about this. What do you think? What do you see on the other side? Because they don't have confirmation bias. And to them, it's black and white. And to you, there's like a million shades. And you're like, but there was that one time in 1945 when he said...
Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness, that's so good. We also have this culture where we sexualize everything, but we don't really talk about sex. And so as a culture that has this obsession, how can we walk that line between being in a culture that does obsess over this sexualization, but also realizing that sex is something that God created for us? What's that line? How do we walk that?
Oh, I have a lot to say about this. So, I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, if it breaks God's heart, then why do you think it would fulfill yours? And,
wow, I love that.
So like God created this gift called sex, and we're obsessed with it, but then we don't talk about it. And it's such a big deal in one context, but it's not a big deal if you're singing a rap song about it or whatever.
Right.
It's like, where is this balance? And it frustrates me because every movie and every ad is like sex, but it's not a big deal. It's like, whatever, hook up with whoever you want. Like, well, which is it? And I think that we really have cheapened sex in our culture. I think about at the very beginning, God made this man and this woman, and I think about this a lot. Like, obviously there's no ancient day Polaroids to prove this, but I like to think that Adam was smoking hot and Eve was, 36, 26, whatever.
Perfect woman.
Perfect, smoking hot. And, Adam went to sleep, he pulled that rib out and he was like, congratulations, like, you're welcome. And yes, and it's a beautiful gift of like, and on your wedding night, I'm going to give this thing called sex. And even outside of the animal kingdom, like, humans enjoy it. It is a bonding experience. In the Greek word, when the Bible was first translated, the word sex was echad, which translates to binding together at the deepest level. This is not this like, hey, you're cute on a Friday night, I'm going to swipe left, swipe right, and go watch Netflix and chill at your house. Like, what? No. We have devalued and cheapened this huge echad, this binding together at the deepest level. When I talk about this with college students, I say my translation is echad, or sex is like concrete. It's not to be undone, and you go by a construction site on the highway and you see dug up concrete, it leaves a big hot mess. There's jackhammers and bulldozers and broken pieces here and broken pieces there, and it's not to be undone. It is made to last. And which is a beautiful thing in marriage too. Think about, wind and rain and storms, like nothing is breaking up that bond. But on a random Friday night, that broken up concrete, it leaves a big hot mess.
Absolutely.
And I would love to argue with someone who's like, oh, no, it's not a big deal. It's whatever. It's not a big deal. Anyone who is walking in that broken sexual relationship, myself included, I know it leaves a big hot mess. It leaves scars, and that is not to say there is not grace, and we will talk about that in a second. But, so a lot of people's freshman year looks like that dug up concrete, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it looks like that big hot mess. So,
absolutely.
It is I just like elevating that way we view sex instead of cheapening it. It is a big deal, and it is something to be honored and sacred, and much more than our culture talks about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your blog post, What If Jesus Meant All That Stuff About Sex, you talk about not just the scripture behind what God is saying his plan is, but also the research. So could you talk a little bit about what that research says and why it's so important?
Yes, I actually got to be friends with a doctor of sexual health. His name is Joe Malone, very smart guy. And every time I'm on a call with him, I'm like, oh, like taking notes.
Yeah.
But a few things that have really blown my mind that he has said is, one is that men are actually bonded to women more when sex is withheld. So essentially,
wow.
like, think about the courting days when it's like, let me take you out, let me date you, let me get to know you. The research actually shows that the men become more protective in a good way. Like, this is my girl. Like, I'm gonna, like, don't you mess with her. I'm gonna protect her. Like, here's my jacket. I'll open the door for you. All those beautiful chivalrous things that we like, because that sex is withheld. And in contrary, I just met you, I'm gonna shack up with you that night. Then it's like that men are hunters. Like done. Like, met her. I don't want to say conquered. That sounds terrible, but met her, went all the way.
Right,
like we have a cod. We have bonded at the deepest level for him and for her. Like, not to say that the relationship can't go on from there, but why rush that? There's so much lost. There's so many levels of intimacy. You've jumped all the way to the deepest level of intimacy. And, think about it. When back to the garden, when God made this idea of sex, that is vulnerable on every level of the word. I mean, that is like, here's my emotion. Here is my trust. Here is my nakedness in every form of the word. Brene Brown talks about this on her super popular TED Talk, how vulnerability and love are the two sides of the same coin. That like, to be vulnerable, to trust, and to love, to have that love, you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So to have this intimacy, to have this vulnerability, to be exposed in every form, that is the other side of love. To have trust and like, I'm here with you all the days of your life. I'm here to support you. I'm never going to leave you. Like, you are my one and only. I keep going back to that garden, but that's another thing to think about is I've been doing mentoring with girls for 15 years. I've never met a girl who's like, I really want a guy who is a sex expert.
Yeah.
No, not one time. No, nobody wants that, because do we want to be like, I want to be compared to this long list of ex-lovers, as the wise theologian Taylor Swift said. No one wants to be compared to a long list of ex-lovers. Instead, every girl I've ever mentored anyway wants to be seen as his only one. Like, you are my definition of beauty. I will climb the highest mountain. I will swim the deepest sea. You are my only one. And getting back to that garden, obviously there's more men and women, and we have more comparison, but protecting your eyes from pornography, having less sexual experiences, less comparison is the fuel for romance. Andy Stanley says exclusivity is the fuel for romance, not experience. So going out and having a bunch of partners doesn't make you better. I mean, like, it really doesn't. Even, in an ideal world, if two people are virgins on their wedding night, they'll figure it out. Like, you don't need experience. You got the rest of your lives to figure each other out. And so instead of, hey babe, I'm an expert on 100 girls, gross, there's no trophies for that. Versus I'm an expert on you. Like, that is much more romantic.
Yes, so true.
Getting hot about that.
No, I love it. I love the
Absolutely.
passion.
I do too.
So sometimes it's easier to ask or to give sex than to ask for or give emotional support. Just for women, I feel like sometimes we kind of get called out for being too emotional or whatever. And sometimes girls will give sex to get that intimacy instead of like, going to their partner and saying, hey, I need this. They'll just kind of go after it through physical stuff. So why do you feel like girls have this mentality?
I mean, I think it's just back in looking for love. Women give pieces of their body away in hopes for love in return. And when that is not met, that hurts. Again, it's here is my vulnerability. Here is my exposedness. Here is my nakedness. Here is all of me. And I'm hoping for love in return. And when that's not met, I don't know how it doesn't hurt. We like to wish it away, and we're like, oh, it's fine. Like I'm an independent woman.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get that, but I think at the deep down, we know that that's not what we want. Again, we want to be seen as his one and only. I mean, what is more romantic? Like, I want to be seen as, and think about every romantic song and every romantic movie. I'm not the first to have this idea. Like, it is back to the Jerry Maguire, even though that's not true. It's so romantic because it's you, not 10 girls, but you and you only. You are the one who complete me. And, every romantic song, like, I only have eyes for you. I will do anything only for you. So anyway, I think that we give sex away in hope for love in return.
Yeah.
And when that's not met, I mean, I think it's painful. And a lot of times, although it doesn't make any sense, there's so many different levels of intimacy. I think there's spiritual intimacy, emotional intimacy, and of course, physical intimacy. And sometimes, although like I said, it doesn't really make sense, it is easier to give physical intimacy than emotional intimacy, because there's not as much thought involved. But that gift on the wedding night that God gave us is the culmination of all of those. It's like the fire. It's like the grand finale of fireworks at the end of the show, and giving that away before anything else, it almost steals from that. It's not the total package. We all agree sex is fun. Like, God made sex to be fun. In a committed, I love you, I'm here for you, like, you are my one and only, I'm going to protect you all the days of my life, you and me forever type of mentality. Like, I always usually compare it to a fire. You may have heard this, but a fire in my fireplace is a good thing. A fire in the middle of my living room rug is destructive. And it's the same. It's the same thing. It's just a different context.
Absolutely. And what you were talking about, the different aspects of relationships and sex, when we talk to our middle school and high school students, we talk about how it's physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual. And if you just focus on the physical, you're left with a mess, MESS. So that's what we like to talk about. I know. I was like, I wonder if she'll like this, but
I love it. I'm stealing it.
Good. Yes. But all the school focuses on is, put a condom on. But if you're not covering these other bases, if you're not protecting yourself mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, there's all of those things that are happening inside of a young person, anyone who's going through that. And all we're told is this is all you need to protect yourself.
Right.
And you're leaving all of these other things exposed and open. So I absolutely love that. I absolutely agree with you. And then
that's so good. And just like, we're not one-dimensional humans. We're so complex.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't. I've also heard you can't have your body and not your heart. They're connected. Like, it's a package deal.
Yeah. And like, it's also in the context of that beautiful covenant that the Lord called us to, all of those things are working together. And so then it is not just physical, it is mental and emotional and social and spiritual. And that's the beauty. That's a beautiful part. So I think we also get lost in that. The next thing I want to talk about is neediness. I think a lot of girls don't want to be seen as needy. But, we all have these emotional needs. So when we're thinking about emotional needs, we have this term where every human being has an emotional need, but when those needs go unmet, we now have an emotional demand, and we are trying to psychic vampire our needs from someone else instead of having that need met on a regular basis. So how would you tell girls to walk that line of the emotional needs, which are healthy, and the emotional demands, which do wear on a relationship?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back a little bit to red flags as well, because if you're walking further and further down a relationship where you're not getting any needs met, and then that escalates to demands because like your love tank, right? That's that Gary Chapman stuff. If your love tank,
fill it.
Yeah, if it's the more dry and dry that gets, then it becomes like, oh my gosh, I'm starving over here. And it's not just, I'm kind of hungry. It's, I'm going to die. Like, I need this need met. And so the further you go down a relationship, starved, emotionally starved relationship, that's going to become more and more of a drastic need. But one of the things I share when I speak to college girls is a quote from a guy's, and it's just talking about like raising that bar when it comes to dating, because a lot of women, they'll think, oh, like I'm interested in setting, understanding my worth and realizing my needs and, defining what matters and not settling for less. But then they're like, but what if that narrows my dating pool and I won't have any good choices? Yeah. And my first response to that is, if your dating pool is smaller and like the guys who just want to use you or just want to get drunk and Snapchat you are no longer an option, then you're welcome. Like,
yeah,
you don't need 50 choices. Really, you need one. Like, that's all you need. Back to the only one in the world. But so one of the quotes I like to share is from the Good Man Project. So this is like from the lips of dudes. He says, so lips of dudes. He says, ladies, if you really want men to step up and become the real men you talk about, you must demand it. I'm not saying ask for it. I'm not saying hope for it. I'm saying demand it. It means if you don't settle for anything less, if you're not satisfied, you walk away. Men will rise up and meet your challenges. I promise it is what we do best. We love it when women make a step up and work. And then he goes on to be like, the hardest part about this is you must be willing to walk away. Back to my friend Joe Malone, he talks about this and how women have so much more power in this than they realize. His research shows, and this is fascinating, that women of, we'll call it hormonal age, like teens to 20s, women in that age group are 4 times more sexually intelligent than their men counterparts.
Wow.
Yes, and that is because, a few different reasons. One is because women are just a little bit more level-headed when it comes to hormones. Like we kind of know what's best for us. Like we know that this hookup culture is it's not what's good for us.
Right.
But men are typically, generally speaking, like, boobies, like
fair.
Typically speaking, I mean, like, I love dudes. I am not like, this is not, saying women are better by any means, but it just, in that age group, women have just a little bit more wisdom when it comes to what's best with their bodies in that age group.
Right.
And so in his theory, when women lead the way, no, I will not go over and Netflix and chill with you. No, we are dating. We are not just Snapchatting. Like, correct. I am defining what matters.
Yeah.
Like his research shows guys will always, like, they're not going to argue with that. Like, ultimately they want the girl, the chicks. Like I mean, guys love girls and girls love guys. Like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so they will rise up and meet the challenges. We just have to raise the bar,
right. Yeah, they want to meet the goal, but if they're meeting the goal on the first date, then they've lost motivation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Or if the bar is on the floor, we got to raise the bar, ladies.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And I feel like a lot of women don't have someone in their life telling them these truths and stuff, and they like letting them know what red flags are in general and like how to see them. And what actually a healthy relationship looks like. So what is a safe place women can go to talk about what a healthy relationship looks like? I know you kind of talked about this a little bit before with like confirmation bias, just letting someone into your relationship. So I guess when someone doesn't have that, where can they go?
I mean, community is everything. I think that whether you're in college or, wherever maybe you just moved, having a Christian community is so important. Whether you find that in church or a Christian, like a campus, affiliation or whatever. I just think that's so vital. Even having, someone, maybe a mentor. I think that, I love doing mentoring, and, people, typically speaking, if you go to a church and you approach a woman that you look up to and just want to, say, hey, can we go to coffee? I'm willing to bet you would say yes. I mean, older women love to pour into younger women. I think that that's a mutually beneficial relationship. So perhaps just asking. And then I always say, you know, some of my mentors don't even know me in real life because it's the books that I read and the podcasts that I listen to. So, you know, surround yourself by good voices pouring into you. One of the best books on relationships I recommend is by Gary Thomas called The Sacred Search. His most popular is Sacred Marriage, which you may have heard of, but he ended up also writing The Sacred Search about dating, which is so good. And Andy Stanley wrote Love, Sex, and Dating that I read about 400 times.
Yes, that one's great.
So good. And a shameless plug, I have a Facebook group called Truth for Your 20s where we have about 200 girls. So we would love to have other people listening to join and just kind of have a network of women supporting women. So
yeah, I was going to point people. I was going to say your blog is amazing. I would absolutely say follow her social media, Katie Bulmer Life. It is amazing. She's hilarious. She has an amazing TikTok. So absolutely follow her. She is wonderful. So my last question is, we have all of this really good information. We have all of these kind of things that we've talked about. And so how do we practically move forward from here? How do we change how we date? What are some steps that some women can take from here?
I think it is coming up with a dating plan. And what I mean by that is an architect makes a blueprint before they ever break ground, yet beautiful women are walking into one of potentially the most important relationships of their life with no plan. So I made this free quiz on my website called Make a Dating Plan.
Oh, yes.
So that's, shout out to that. You can check that out. But essentially, you know, it's tricky because there's this idea of making a list of some non-negotiables, and that's important. But also, you know, make that list with God. I listened to Relationship Goals by Michael Todd, so good. And he has this whole thing about ripping up your list. So I had this tension of set some non-negotiables, but make them with God. For example, he talked about like, wow, it'd be really nice if my future wife was debt-free. Yet part of their story is getting out of debt together, and it, like now they're really passionate about helping couples get out of debt. So, you know, having some non-negotiables is important, but make those with God. I would say, though, however, the one non-negotiable, no matter what, is sharing the same faith.
Absolutely.
You probably heard it said not to be unequally yoked. For the longest time, I thought this had something to do with an egg. So in case someone
love that
in case there's someone like who's like, wait, it doesn't have to do with an egg, they're referring to YOKE, which means the bar between two oxen. So essentially one oxen can only move so far if the other one is not moving. My modern day example is running a 3-legged race. If your partner is laying on the ground, you're not going to get very far in that 3-legged race. So it's just really, I don't think it's negotiable because there's a triangle example too. So if God is at the top of the triangle and man and woman are at the bottom, and you're both going toward the same place, you both have eyes on the prize, you know, that is where you're headed, and you meet at the top of that triangle. Ooh, baby, that's romance. That is romance.
I love that. And I want to go back to one question that I did skip because I think it's a very important, we did talk about this towards the beginning, but there are a lot of girls out there, even, you know, Christian girls who have said, you know what, I have messed up. I'm damaged goods. This is all really good information. I wish I had known before, but it's too late for me now. So what would you say to that girl who's just really lost hope, the girl listening who's just like, wow, I wish I had known it, but it's too late for me?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked this. So I did a TikTok about, like, you know, setting race the bar, and overwhelmingly the comments were too late for me, too late for me, and I'm like, I know, I wanted to be like, so I responded to, it's not too late. I responded to that with, here's the way to think about it. Okay, if I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. If I want to drive to Canada, I get on the highway and I go north. Like, no one argues this point.
Fair.
But we somehow think about with our life, if we have made a wrong turn, then we just like keep going that way and see what happens. Like that's crazy. If I get in my car and I accidentally go south, I don't just, oh, well, I hope I end up in Canada. Like, no.
I'll make it there eventually, maybe.
I guess Mexico is just as good.
So that makes no sense when it comes to driving. Yeah, even like we think about this with food and with, just our habits. Like, oh, well, I missed one day on my diet. I guess I'll just go eat 30 donuts. Like, no, like
preach.
Yep. So we made a decision we're not proud of. We went too far with the guy, whatever. I don't care what happened last spring break, last week, last night. There are forks in the road every single day.
Yes.
And that is true with everything in life. Mm-hmm. So that is a straight up lie, the lie of damaged goods.
Yeah.
And get it out of your brain, wash it with Windex, throw it down the toilet and flush it. It is a lie.
Yeah.
Today is a new day. There is a fork in the road, and you get to decide. Do you want to go north, south, east, or west? You decide, because I'm not going to tell you, but where are you headed? Yeah. What I always ask young people, picture your best life when you're 30. Is she married? Is she single? Is she a career woman? Is she stay-at-home mom? Like, none of those are wrong. Yeah. But where are you headed? And now life is going to throw you curveballs. I'm not saying you need to idolize being this certain way when you're 30. None of that. Like, that's not healthy. But knowing where you're headed. Yeah. Where are you headed? And that way you at least know which way you're going. Yeah. Know which way you're going, because or you could get in the car and accidentally head south and be like, oh, well, guess I'll just see what happens. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
We're all on a path, and our path leads somewhere. Yeah. So which path do you want to be on?
Yes, I love that. Wow, Katie, so much wisdom. Yeah. Like I was talking before, Kayla and I are big fans of yours. If you didn't hear before, please go join Katie on social media. It is katiebulmer.life on Instagram. She also has an amazing website. But ladies, thank you so much for listening today. We hope you feel educated, encouraged, and empowered to thrive in whatever relationship you're in. Have a great day.